Welcome to episode 7 of REIclosers. Got all three of us on here. Me, Alex Jensen, my brother, and Jake Koenig, just a few OU alum. Jake was in our fraternity in college. I want to say you were a dental. What were you trying to do originally?
Pre-dental.
Okay, pre-dental. I do remember that. I like when I was a freshman, I remember talking with you and you're pre-dental. But Jake is pretty much full-time real estate investor now. He's flipped. I don't know, how many houses have you flipped?
On my own, I'm at 12, and then with that company, I did about 62 over 2 years with.
Jeez. Okay. So now full-time on his own. We'll go into how he's finding these deals, breakdown of some of the profit he's been able to make from that, how the actual process works of flipping a house, and how he went from basically working with the company, right? Flipping
Yep.
houses or helping them do that to
Yeah.
now deciding to do it on your own.
Yep.
Okay. And Alex and Jake were the same grade at OU. I was 2 years younger. I think we talked about this on the last episodes. I got into sales, but I know you were doing pre-dental. So when did you decide? Did you switch to business? How'd you even get into real estate?
So I'll just give you the rundown on initially out of college. I took the first summer off, played a bunch of golf, didn't really do much, and then got a sales position with a freight brokering company. So what that basically entailed, I'd go in there and I'd make about 50 to 100 cold calls a day. I would be calling on companies trying to figure out how they were doing, kind of managing their shipping department and trying to broker freight for them. So I landed some good accounts in that company, but what it taught me was how to cold call. And I knew I didn't want to sit behind a desk. So about 8 months in, actually, it's probably about 6 months in of having that job, I got on YouTube and someone introduced me to wholesaling real estate. And once I learned a little bit, the only thing I learned on YouTube was really that you have to find a deal. And whenever they talked about finding a deal, it's just driving around and cold calling houses. So I was like, put two and two together. I'm like, okay, I can cold call now. And every day I got off at 4. So from 4 to 5, every day for about 3 months, I would drive around for an hour and just call on houses. And it was 3 months in that I found my first deal. And that's where the ball started rolling. I didn't know what I was going to do with the property. The lady lived in Kansas, house was in Tulsa. It had flooded back in December. She had a pipe bust, so all of her flooring was ripped up and whatnot. So I went in there and I looked at the house, like it was just me and her. She drove in from Kansas.
Was it vacant whenever you said she lives in Kansas?
Yeah, so she had already moved out of it and she wouldn't do anything with it. But I just remember the first time I walked through the house, I thought it was like a catastrophe, like that the flooring was up and there was drywall missing. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to buy this house. And so she gave me a number. She wanted 190 grand for it. And I took it to a few people that I knew were doing real estate, and one of them being my buddy's dad. We looked at the numbers, and it ended up being about a 6-month process, but we got it under contract for 185. It took us about 2 months to renovate it. We were all in at 231. No, we were all in at 225. Sold it for 331.
Jeez.
And it was like that first, and I learned a lot through that because I brought in, I don't regret it, but I brought in like my cousin, I brought in his sons, like, so
Splitting the profits with everyone.
Yeah. So once it was all said and done, I only made like 16 grand, and when I should have probably made around 40. But it was a good learning experience. And then from there, I knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do. I was like, I can make what I'm making per year right now with one house.
Yeah.
And, I can go into more on.
Yeah. So that you were doing, you said freight though, that was like the original sales.
Yeah, just broke
okay.
freight. And I was doing all right. Like I'd created a book that I think I was getting 45 grand base salary, and then I was making around, I think I'd built up about 40 grand in commissions per year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Definitely
wasn't
not bad.
terrible, but it's
That
like,
you got the,
go ahead.
I would say you got the potential of like, the, I guess, commission type structure, increasing the income there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't like someone breathing down my neck either. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what that job was. It's like, you can't leave early. Like, you got to stay exactly till 4. And I just thought it was pathetic because I was actually creating business for them.
Right. I think
So
it's funny seeing how, because Alex, how long were you doing driving for dollars when you got your first deal that way?
I'd say first deal, I think, was in the first few weeks. But I was
Yeah.
driving for dollars quite a bit. I'd usually wake up like Saturday morning and go do it for a few hours.
Yeah. So I guess people that don't know what driving for dollars means, that's what Jake and Alex did to get some of those big deals, or one of their first deals was just driving around you're just finding, the shitty houses, right? Did you, you said you were cold calling them. Did you just go back and skip trace it, Jake, or were you ever knocking on it or leaving notes?
I want to say I bought a subscription to PropStream. That's what it was. And
Okay.
so I was skip tracing and doing everything through that app.
So you would just like write it down on a notepad and then.
No, I never do that. Still to this day, I call it right when I'm outside the house.
Okay. So you literally just pull up and call the house.
Because if I write it down, I've tried it before. I just don't do it. So it's
Right.
I have to do it right then.
How many would you say that you would like? Because we can do that with DealMachine. Again, we're not sponsored by either of these people, maybe one day, but we'll pull up and you can just tap on the house, add the lead, skip trace it. And I do that all the time, especially if we're knocking houses in pre-foreclosure, or I just see one while I'm, doing something. I could be literally driving to like dinner and I just see a crappy house and I'll add it and I'll just call them just to see what happens. But how many do you think you would do after work, like in a given day?
Oh, I'd probably call 25, anywhere from 20 to 25 houses.
And then how long did it take you to find that one?
About 3 months.
3 months.
And it took me another around 6 months to even close that deal. So,
yeah.
And that's all I cared about at that time. Like, I was still calling on other houses, but I didn't know what I was doing at all. And I think that's like, if I had advice for anybody that wants to get in real estate, that's kind of how you have to do it. Like, just know you're never going to know everything. I mean, I continue to learn even after doing all these houses. Like, there's always stuff you learn after doing a different house. And so I would just say do it.
Yeah. I think we were the same way. It's like we just jumped in. We had help, but it's like, there's someone that probably knows more than you, where you just threw it to like your friend's dad, and then you brought in other people where you were more comfortable just being like, I'm not going to make as much money on this, but I can see the whole process through.
Yeah.
I don't have to
people respect the hustle too. It's like, if you're bringing them a deal or you're at least trying, like, people respect that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good example of the whole instant gratification thing too. Like, I feel like all the newbies are like, hey, I haven't gotten a deal. It's been 2 weeks. Like, what's going on? Like, it takes a while. I mean, you might stumble upon something pretty quickly, but I mean, I think that's a perfect example of you got to keep going, even if you're kind of getting disgruntled about the whole situation.
Yeah. I think everyone that I've talked to, I mean, you look at wholesaling real estate, the reason, this is just like any entrepreneurship, but most people don't even get a first deal or stick anything out because they would never wait 6 months or 3 months, even like what you did, to find that first deal, just driving around calling houses. They'd be like, I did this for a week, but I didn't really find anything. And then they quit, and they're probably still working that same job that they didn't want to be working maybe in the first place.
Yeah. I think you have to get accustomed to know, and that's what that job taught me. I mean, I'd make 50 phone calls, 100 phone calls a day, and I'd say 99% of them are no. So it's like, well, after work, I'm like, I can go take 50 more no's. It's not that big of a deal. You just kind of brush them off.
It's like the same, every single person I've brought onto this has the exact same story, basically how they got full-time or more into real estate. Was like, I was doing this job. Like Alex, I think, what were you working till 2:00? You went to the gym and then you go back and cold call for 3 hours.
Yeah, that was 6 to like 2:30 roughly. Go to the gym, and then I'd cold call for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 hours a night.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you were able to get one after what, 3 weeks maybe?
I think it was somewhere around there. Yeah.
But that's not typical for most people, and that's everyone's going after and doing their second job to basically eventually replace their income with the I guess side hustle you could call it. So you do that deal that was in Tulsa, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing is almost every one of your deals been in Tulsa?
Yeah. All
Okay.
of them.
And you live down there, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's crazy. So that one was, when was that time frame? I'm just curious, like when that was bought and sold.
That would have been 2020. So
Okay.
and it was when the market was hot. Like when we listed
Yeah.
that house, it sold in 8 hours. Like that, it was one of those deals where
Oh,
we
geez.
listed it and it sold over asking price in 8 hours. Like it was.
Yeah. Now you're like, oh, flipping houses is easy.
I wish they're still like that.
Yeah. So we'll get into that now because I know you just had one go live, yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll break down some of those. So basically, though, on this one, I was curious on the numbers. You bought it at 185. You were all in at 225.
Yes.
Okay.
It was 180. It might have been 180. I can't really remember, but
Yeah.
it was around that. And then we put I think it was 35 to 40 grand into it. And what, like, how I told you that the flooring was ripped up, there was some sheetrock missing. And like once I brought my buddy's dad in there, he's like, Jake, this house is 80% done. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, so I obviously had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah. He's like, this is easy.
It was already a nice house. Like bathrooms were updated and it didn't need a whole lot, just a coat of paint and just some, we didn't even have to replace the roof. The roof stayed, garage door was nice. I think it was just paint interior, exterior, and then replacing all the flooring and then doing some sheetrock work and pretty simple stuff.
Yeah. So I think as far as breaking down that, because like you didn't have, you're making say 80 grand a year. How are you buying a house and putting 45 grand of work into it? What'd you guys do to fund it? Was it your buddy's dad or did you guys go to the bank?
Yeah, it was my buddy's dad. So that was part of the deal that we made. His son was my best friend, and then he's got a brother as well. And so their dad just made a deal with me that he'd write us a check for the full amount and fund the rehab if I'd give them 50%.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So basically they brought the full 225. It resold for 325 or 330?
331, yeah.
331. Obviously you have some closing cost commissions. What was the total spread on that got paid out to everyone?
It was like 16,900.
Well, that was to you. Like, I guess total profit.
Oh, it was 80 something thousand.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So he basically got 40 and then you split the 40 with some other people?
Yeah. And then we had to he's put some type of like interest inside of his and paying us. So it worked out well. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. So those are the sacrifices you have to make early on, and you slowly learn how to take home more of the profits.
Yeah, don't just try and do it all yourself at the beginning. So that was when you were doing freight. How'd you get in? Because I know you were working. Was it REI Grow? Who were you working for that you said you flipped a bunch of houses with? How'd you move into
REI Nation? And
REI Nation.
I worked for them a little under 2 years. So I'll just run through their model real quick. But what they do is they have project managers in about 11 different markets, and like my job as a project manager was they would send me houses that wholesalers were sending them. Basically, I'd go assess the property, is what they'd call it, assessments, and I'd put a rehab budget on like what I think it needed to be rehabbed, and then they'd use that to negotiate with the seller to initially put an offer in. And so if they bought that house, then that was my budget, the budget that I came up with to stay in for that project. We would renovate it, and then they would sell the house. Well, actually, we'd renovate it, and then they'd put tenants in it, and then they would sell it to an investor, and then they'd manage it on the back end. So it was they kind of do a lot of double dipping.
Yeah.
It's a good model. Nothing wrong with
That's
the
probably
model.
nice when the interest rates are quite low and an investor was just walking in to have a
Yeah.
tenant, basically.
Yeah, and they're not really it's a property management company is all it is, because they're liquidating the property 100% to the investor, and they're completely selling it off, and then they just manage it for 10% on the back end.
So they're making the income on essentially the flip and
Yep.
then the property management on the back end.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
it's a cool model. I mean, if I wanted to replicate it tomorrow, I feel like I could, but
Yeah.
I just don't know if I really like. I don't know. There's a lot of headaches that go into it too, because whenever you're providing a product for somebody and then managing it, like there can be, I don't know. You put a lot of trust in your project managers and stuff.
Right. So what were you doing as the assessment guy? You stepped out of the other sales cold calling position with freight, but you moved into this. Were you making commissions? Like, how did you,
Yeah.
or
So
you just want to learn how to flip houses?
no, I actually took a pay cut to go do this. I think I started out at 50 grand to go start doing those houses, but I was still able to do houses on the side as well. And where was that? Okay.
You were still doing, like, you were still driving for dollars. You were still trying to find.
Yeah. I was flipping and wholesaling, and it was interesting too. I don't know if I should say it on record, but it's like the way that I could find houses and sell them to the company. Like, it was pretty unique opportunity.
Okay.
And they were fine with it. It's not like but
Yeah.
yeah.
It can be not insider trading or anything.
Yeah. It could be a conflict of interest a little bit, but it was, I think the job itself taught me so much, and it was the best decision I ever made to, like, just go work for somebody else, learn what they're doing, and then replicate it and do it on your own. And that's always kind of what I desired to do after I learned about real estate. And then I found that job and took it, did it for 2 years, and now I owe that company a lot to where I am today.
That is very cool, because we didn't. We pretty much got into wholesaling, but it's like, I've never gone through a full flip like that, just because we had pretty quick success wholesaling. And I'm like, our interest rates went up, and I'm like, if I can get paid now and just replicate it, that's why we haven't focused on it as much, I guess, as far as our timing.
Yeah, I want to focus on more wholesaling in 2024. It'd be nice. And I also need to start accumulating property for some cash flow. I don't want to be deal hunting my whole life. So
yeah. But Alex and I were literally just talking about that, how we can create some more residual type. But so you were in REI Nation, and you said it took 2 years before you were like, all right, I'm just going to do this on my own. Did you have like a certain amount of deals you were doing before you were ready to step away?
I wanted to. So actually, when I did that first house that I told you guys about that my buddy's dad helped me, I noticed that this is a funny story. I noticed there was a house across the street that looked vacant from that one. And I thought I found the right, like, I was searching for the number for a while, and I found a number that was iMessage. So I was like, this has to be someone, right? And so I texted that number probably for 3 months, about every 2 weeks for 3 months. And
no answers?
No answers. But I knew, it says delivered, and then it would say read. So, like, I knew someone was reading it and it was delivering. So I just
they had their red receipts on too.
Yeah. And so I just kept sending text messages to him. And then finally, it was probably 3 or 4 months in, I sent a picture of the house, and I was like, is this your house? Like, yes or no? And she finally replied, and she's like, yes. And that ended up to be a great deal, because I originally offered her 175 for the house, or maybe 150. And it took somewhere between 6 and 9 months for me to close that deal. But the kicker is halfway through negotiations with her, like just going back and forth, she spilled the beans that she had another house in the neighborhood. So I was able to get both those houses under contract for 350 grand. And those two houses are really what got me out of my job. Cause I mean,
yeah, you just locked up too after what
yeah.
you said 3 to 6 months of just like texting her with no answer.
Well, yeah, that's how I originally finally got her to answer. But then just going back and forth with her and communicate. She was so attached to the properties because she grew up in them and they're her mom's, but she needed the money. Like I could tell.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, dude, because she had an offer for 425 grand from somebody else. But I'd built
Like
such
for the two total.
Yeah. But I'd built such a good relationship with her that like she just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Alex, that was how much were people offering the guy on the one you had? That was, I think you got it for 465.
Yeah, I ended up getting it for 465. I know when he came back to me, because I'd offered him lower than that, he came back to me saying like, hey, I have higher offers, but since we've kind of got to know each other, so similar thing. I don't know if he ever had like, $560,000 offers like the house across the street had, but it was definitely higher than what I was asking him.
I think most people don't think about that. They're like, why would she accept that offer? It's like there's a lot more to it than just the highest offer for most people. Like they want to know you can close, they want to trust you. Building the rapport is like so much more important than people realize. And the follow-up, like again, most people would never text someone for 3 to 6 months, but it's like half our deals are after like 7 to 12 touches. Like there's guys I'm still texting from 5 months ago that told me they wanted to sell. He's same thing. He's got 2 houses. I didn't even know until I talked to him. I left a note on his door, and now it's like I'm eventually hopefully going to get both of those. I literally have some of the stuff he gave me in his house just sitting in my room, but he's like, oh, I'm still waiting to like handle some things before I sell it. Like you never know.
Yeah.
But you get both of them for 150. Were they just like the same size house, or is she just like
I got one both of them for 175. And no, one of them they were both just dumps. Like it was going to be full gut jobs. So, I mean, they were probably worth a little bit more than that, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah. And it's funny, dude, because even whenever I find like I'm telling her these numbers, and in my mind, I have no idea how I'm going to like close these. And so, I mean, I'm thinking best case scenario, I could try and wholesale them or something like that.
Yeah.
But I really had no idea. I ended up doing a hard money loan on that one.
On both?
Yeah, on both of them. And
so we'll break that down in a second, because I think a lot of people also do that, whether it's wholesaling, because most people getting started aren't focused on flipping. Luckily, you had the resources to like do that or know how to do it. Most people just get it under contract and then they're like, okay, I have an option period. Let's go see if I can find a buyer. That's why if you have it at a good price, it doesn't, like you said, you have it at this number, but you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Like, let's just figure it out later. And that's kind of just like throwing yourself in the fire. But how did you break down how you did a hard money loan on this and how you basically were able to flip these houses without using your own money?
I was able to get the hard money loan. So the lender that I used, he actually lived in that neighborhood. So he knew that it was like an exceptional deal. And that benefited me heavily. The interest rate was 12.75. So very high.
On the hard money loan?
Yeah. And they
gave you what percent?
60 grand per house as well. So 120 grand on top of the 350 for renovations. So I had basically a $500,000 loan at 12.75%.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I was paying like $7,000 a month in interest payments almost. Like, and I had built up some capital, like I was doing all right, but I was using the construction loans that they gave me to help with interest rates. And it was just, I ended up having to take like a $50,000 loan from my parents. Thankfully, they were able to help me. I don't really like going to family, but I had to, like I was in a bind. And that's what ultimately allowed me to finish out the project. And dude, it got to the point on that where I was almost for a week like neglecting those houses. Like I was so afraid to even see them because I was so overwhelmed. Like all I could think about whenever I'd lay my head at night, I'm like, I've got a $500,000 loan to my name with 2 houses that are only halfway finished, and it was like a high end project. And with REI, all those houses are low end flips, and
Jeez.
so I was way over my head. Like, yeah, those were stressful times.
And that was that when the market was still kind of hot, I would assume?
That was when it turned. And so like whenever I put those for sale, it was let's see. It would have been December or like the end of last year. So like right when things were kind of starting to get rocky.
Yeah.
And
how did it finish up there?
I ended up making roughly, so I made $150,000 profit total on both of them. But then I had to pay my parents back to 50 grand. So I walked away with roughly like 90 grand.
Jeez.
And that's whenever it's like Jensen, like you made that big wholesale deal and it allowed you to quit your job. That's how I was. I was like, I'm going to put some of this in a personal account, bet on myself for a year and just go for it. But
so you went from basically having a $500,000 loan at 12%. You now had to borrow from some family. I can imagine how stressful that was. So how long did the project take?
3.5 months for one, and then one of them took a month longer because I honestly waited. One of them was under contract and I knew it was going to sell, so I waited until that one sold, which was probably stupid. I probably should have just loaned more money from somebody and then used the profits from that one to get the other one done, then sold that one.
Wow.
So, yeah, honestly, dude, if you're starting out, just wholesale.
No, I think people listening to this is like, it's crazy to see because when you're wholesaling it, I mean, who knows? Like if you would have, it's cool because now you're flipping a lot of houses and you probably like, because of that, don't have that kind of headache, or at least know how to avoid most of that. But if you had them each at 175, and what do you think you could have wholesaled them for?
I think I probably could have made my 80.
Really?
I mean, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I probably could have sold them for about 225 a pop.
Yeah. And then you'd have just been out from that, I guess, stress, but now you can't.
The thing is, though, I would have had to figure out taxes too. Like that's what I love about flipping is I mean, it's very rarely that I pay taxes.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways. I guess we could go into that too, because I know you can't be taxed heavily whenever you are, I guess, a dealer or you're flipping or wholesaling because it's more of that, active income. Are you just saying you roll those proceeds into another property to kind of defer the taxes?
Yeah. And so the way you can do it which it might be, I mean, this is how I do it, but if you're a real estate professional, you can basically list yourself as a home supplier. So it's like a t-shirt business. If you're selling $200,000 worth of t-shirts at the very end of the year, you could go buy $200,000 worth of inventory and defer it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that straightforward, and with flipping, you're spending a lot of money per house. So you can write off those expenses towards what you're making on the house. And that's really where I save a lot of money, and I write so much stuff off because I'm spending so much money. I mean, I think I've spent I was looking at my bank accounts, I've spent 72 grand in the last 2 weeks.
Just to fix up.
And I don't love that. It's pretty scary because you're like, where's all that money going? And I was talking to another flipper yesterday that's more advanced than I am. And I was just like, dude, I feel so unorganized. I can't keep track of all these checks going out. And he's like, dude, trust me, I've been doing it for longer than you have, and I'm still in the same boat. So that made me feel better. But when
you hear that other people have the same problems, although you could probably still organize it better, because there's people that have those systems dialed in, and I'm like, I don't know how they're keeping track of that, but it is all just getting things.
Yeah. So yesterday, I called him and I was sitting at my desk looking at all this paperwork, and I got on Facebook Marketplace and I just looked for a file cabinet, and I found one. A guy had it listed for, I think it was $65. And I said, hey, I can pick it up today for $40. And he's like, if you can meet me there in 5 minutes, you can have it for $40. But this is cool because I got to the property. It's at 31st and Utica, which is like prime time Tulsa real estate. And when I pull up to the house, it's like surrounded by $1 million houses. And this one was, you could tell it was a little older, just traditional style home. And the guy had been in real estate for like 30 years. He was a great guy. It was his mom's house and he's selling it. And so now this weekend I'm going back over there, and I'm taking like some investors over there with me to look at it and potentially going to flip it. So
Yeah.
that's
And
real
you saw
estate.
that you were just buying a file. You said a filing cabinet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've ran into that on houses, like the most random things, like people that have leased some of the properties that I own, like for rent. They're like, oh, we're trying to move, or you run into all these different situations. Like, yeah, we're actually looking to sell it, but we're trying to wait to sell it. And I'm like, well, we buy houses, so
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
That was cool how real estate works, though.
Yeah, there's a answer to everything. You just solve someone's problem. I think Alex was going to go into deeper, like, I'm curious about the marketing, because we do a lot of wholesaling and we're like basically help people close their deals, right? Like we'll market ourselves as a closer, bring us, go driving for dollars, do cold calling, text messages, door knocking, and then they'll come to us and close it. But like, I guess, how are you? I think, Alex, did you talk to him about how he said referrals? I don't
Yeah,
know
because
how.
we were talking about, you and me, about how to expand marketing, and I know Jake, you said you were doing texting a lot, and that's kind of not been going as well, just with all the rules and whatnot. So how are you getting a lot? I know you talked about referrals from realtors, but like, what's your primary marketing method right now? What's working well?
So pay-per-click is what I've been using the most. Okay. It's the most expensive method too. So I don't know if I recommend it to everybody starting out, but that's a good way. And like, something that I'm learning with flipping is a lot of times, like when I look at numbers, I look for home run deals. Like me personally, I'd rather do 5 houses in a year that will make me 80 to 100 grand a pop than 30 houses that are only gonna make me 15, 20 grand. It's just way less headaches, way less work, and I enjoy doing higher end finishes. But that being said, it's like with the texting, there's too many regulations now, so I get shut down if I send out more than 500 texts in a day. I mean, I get flagged, and it's been a headache. So I kind of shut that down. I was using batch leads for that, and then I've done some direct mail. The thing about direct mail is people think you can just send out direct mail. It doesn't work that way. It's like, I mean, a guy I work with, he sends direct mail and he says, I'm never going to stop sending direct mail until they respond or those people die. And I think that's honestly kind of how you have to do it. It's like, if you find a house that it's a hot house, it's like, just annoy them.
Yeah. Like your text messages.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm sure you guys have maybe dabbled in that a little bit, but
yeah, we have a deal right now. Actually, could be a pretty decent deal from just sending out a postcard to someone.
Which one was that?
The North Richland Hills land one. I don't even remember sending them mail, but that was, the lady called me. It's like, hey, I got your postcard. I was like, right on. That was like a 6-month follow up and whatnot, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was from a postcard. I think Alex has probably sent more mail than I have, but I'll do it occasionally on that DealMachine app.
Yeah, the most effective way is cold calling, in my opinion. That's just personal opinion, but
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what you're doing, like all the top wholesalers, flippers, whatever it is, they are eventually doing pay-per-click. So what that means for people that don't understand that is like you're paying for some sort of Google site ad, Facebook ad. People are inquiring, how do I sell my house fast? Or they're looking for a cash offer. I have partnered with a guy that does Facebook ads. Probably not as effective as Google, but people see an ad on Facebook. Hey, I'm looking to get a cash offer for my house, or I need to sell it quick. And then it comes into our CRM and I call it. And basically They tell us why they want to sell it. They tell us pretty much the asking price they want, and then I can get on the phone with them and at least have a hotter lead that's inbound rather than you going outbound to find every single lead. So what are you doing? What are you doing for your pay-per-click?
So I use Google right now. I'm not running Google. If you guys haven't done it yet, I would go to Bing. Bing is just as effective and it's like half the cost. And like you're going to reach an audience that probably a better audience that wants to sell their house. Like some people that want to sell their house are probably going to go to Bing other than Google. Like not to be judgmental, but that's just probably.
I was going to say, who the heck is using Bing?
Yeah, people that want to sell their house. No, but that's how I've been using it. And then I just set it up to where it's got all the keywords. The site I bought, or I paid a guy to build a website for me that has AI SEO integrated into it. So every day it uploads, I think it's 15 to 20 real estate articles onto it's got like a blog page on the website. And so Google sees that every day as like keywords basically, and it refreshes it. So I don't know how that works. That's way over my head, but I did pay probably too much money for the website and seems to be working, but I think you can do it a lot cheaper.
Yeah. How many have you gotten? Like, how long have you been doing pay-per-clicks? I think we reached out to you when you started it like a few months ago.
Yeah, I've only been doing it for a few months. And honestly, like, I think from an outsider's view, people like on record, what I want people to know about real estate is it's not all roses. Like,
yeah,
especially like for me right now, I've got 4 houses outstanding. Like you're paying mortgages on all 4 houses. I mean, you got to finish up renovations, and like I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul on some projects, and it gets stressful. And so, I mean, there's times like right now where I'm not really lead sourcing at all because I want to sell everything off and then kind of start fresh in the new year. And, but yeah, it's not all fun and games. Like it's super stressful.
I just had that happen on just a house. I was like, oh, I did a 0% interest seller finance deal that I held as a rental, which is like, it's a smoking deal and it's cool. And then when I bought it, it's like, I'm only giving them 20 grand down. My contract at first was like, oh, it'll be 15 grand in repairs. I even got, someone, I mean, it cash flows on its own, like over $800 a month. So I had plenty of room to get like a private money lender. Just I'll pay you passive interest on it and it still cash flows. But I still, that we went in there, the plumbing had to be replaced. I didn't know about, I should have got it inspected, like, more detailed. But it's like, there's stuff that can always go wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a great deal, but it's just like more of a headache on small things that you don't think about until you're actually in the fire.
Yeah.
That people don't really.
You see everything on social media, like, oh, this is great. I'm making X, X, and X on this, and that. And then they don't tell you that 10% of it or whatever, 10 hours of the day last week, they're just freaking out about something.
Yeah. It's like, oh, make, on some of these, that's why wholesale is cool. Like we can show someone, hey, we made 35 grand on a deal that I literally put $10 into, but they didn't see how long it took to find the deal, to get under contract, to put out a fire with the seller and the title company. I mean, I just had one of our biggest wholesale deals close after I think we got it. I got in touch with them in April from a buddy that had already been in touch with them for 5 months. We finally got it under contract in September. They were building a house in San Antonio and wanted to close at the end of October, but it got pushed back because their build wasn't done until it just closed like 4 days ago. And I mean, I had to get calm down the seller several times. I had to extend amendments. Like it took forever to eventually get it done. But then now it's like, cool. They're happy.
Yeah, right.
They got paid. We got paid. It just took 8 months.
That's like the one right now that I have been, that I door knocked like 3 or 4 weeks ago, renter in the house for an owner finance house, had to get in touch with the actual owner finance guy. He didn't speak English. So I'm talking to his son, had to go over to their own auto body shop across town twice, like translate in this back room, negotiate, had to call the trustee on Sunday night at like 9 p.m. to get it delayed. And then had to call the underlying note holder to like actually convince him to delay it. All that. I mean, you can make a good wholesale fee when it closes, but like I'm driving across town to like sketchy parts, talking.
Alex is in an alleyway, like just talking to this person about buying their
No,
house.
it was an auto body shop behind an auto body shop in a part of town that like you probably shouldn't be hanging out in. And I'm just driving back there and negotiating with this guy that I don't know. But
So
Oh, yeah.
I had a wholesale deal. It was last year, and it actually landed in my lap. But the guy texted me. He's like, "Hey, this guy's super interesting cat. His mom who owned the house. She had paid a contractor to do a bunch of work, and he just left, like didn't do any of the work. And so
You took the money.
she had a reverse mortgage on her house, and then whenever she passed, the son was living there, and they were kicked. Like he ultimately was getting evicted from. I don't even know how that works, but the city was taking over the house, and so I go in there one day and to go look at the house. Like I had texted him, and he was a good guy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, very interesting, wheelchair bound. Like majority of the time that I'd walk in the house, he wouldn't be wearing pants. Like he had
I've had one of those, Jake.
Yeah, he had a catheter. Like so, he always had like a bag of manure next to him, and like it just smelled like he smoked cigarettes and weed. But the funny thing is I worked on that deal for about 3 months, and his only request, like he said, "I'll work with you, but I need you to bring me Natty Daddy every 3 days." And so every 3 days I would deliver him an 18-pack of Natty Daddy. And I mean, it was a lot of work though. I mean, supplying Natty Daddies, but it's like you got to do that stuff to get those deals. And
I had that exact same guy, literally the same thing, like no pants, wheelchair. And I mean, I went and delivered him like his AC was out. Like I would just give him like a little fan just so this dude could like.
Yeah.
That's wild. So he wanted an 18-pack. Natty Daddies are just like what, the higher percent natural lights.
Yeah, and he probably should have been drinking anyways because he had that condition where he couldn't, like he had like liver failure or something.
You're just supplying this man's addiction.
It's one of those though. If he stops drinking, he's probably gonna croak.
And if I didn't deliver it, dude, he would blow my phone up. Like would not stop calling me. So I made like 17 grand on it, so it worked out well.
Yeah, I'll take that for some 18
17 grand minus probably 500 from Natty Daddies.
But your monthly, just add that into your rent, $500 natural light drop off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. So what is I don't want to keep this forever going too long here, but like, what is your goal now? Is like you said, focus on the big deals. I got like, if I can get 5, home run deals to essentially make the larger profit, not have to deal with such a headache. But like you said, you want to focus on wholesaling. What do you want to do? Like the next, step, like what's your goal?
Yeah. So in 2024, I want to reevaluate kind of where I'm headed. I love flipping. It's great, but I think ultimately for 2024, what I want to do is I think I was telling Alex a little bit about this, but I'd like to train kind of like a project manager and have him manage all the projects. And I want to slowly remove myself from the flipping side of things. I'll still do some of the lead sourcing, and because that doesn't take too much of my time during the day. Like I can do that for an hour, 2 hours a day and create a consistent pipeline. But I want to create incentives around it. So like if I hire a project manager, I'll pay him a set amount per project, but then he gets a bonus for days to complete. If he stays in budget, if I can rate him on his home inspection scores. And I think that's a good way to train someone and also give them some incentive, and then kind of put him in my place. And I want it to be a younger guy because I think it's a skill set that if you know how to flip a house or you know how to wholesale a house, it's like that's an easy way to make 250 grand a year. And I mean, that's a great thing to know. So I've thought about doing an internship program too, where it's like someone coming out of college or that's in college, they can come work with me for a summer, and their project for the summer is flipping a house. Like, I think that'd be, if I was offered that in college, I would have loved that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we thought about doing something like we even went back to guys at Lambda, and they were like slowly, letting people that want to generate some leads, whether it's cold calling or we have a new like lead generation we found through Facebook, but like something that people can get plugged in and start making, or at least being around, those deals and making some sort of commission. I think there's probably people that will hear this that might hit you up. We'll drop your social media, but I'm sure there's someone that would love to do that.
Yeah, no, and ultimately that's what I want to do next year. Then I want to start I'm going to be more invested in commercial real estate next year. So start attacking that side of things. I think I'm going to take proceeds from flips and start investing in commercial. I just think it's a lot better asset to invest in personally. There's there's less headaches, way more upside, longer leases, triple net's great. You're not receiving phone calls. There's no clogged toilet. They take care of it themselves. It's just,
Right.
it makes more sense to me, but it's also more expensive to get into. But
Go listen to my third episode. Nolan, that's pretty much, he moved everything from single family eventually to commercial. And I mean, he breaks down how he gets like an infinite return on pretty much every deal by similar to like what you're doing with Flip or what we do when we buy a house single family. It's like he gets a home run deal. It's a vacant property or whatever. The tenant isn't paying much in rent. They put a better business in there, fix it up, and now the property's worth twice as much, and he brings in capital partners that pretty much fund the whole thing and split it 50-50 with them. So it's like,
yeah,
I mean, it's crazy what he's able to do. But yeah, commercial can be another beast that's like not necessarily harder, but it's just a bigger deal.
Yeah, it is. And it takes, I love residential because of how fast paced it is. You call a house, you could have it under contract today. Like commercial, I've been calling on it for a while. It didn't work that way. It's like, more than likely it's going to take 6 months to a year for someone to sell, or you got to wait till a lease is up, or, I mean, there's a lot of different factors. I will say I work with a guy named Jake Freeman, and he started this year and he's locked up, I don't know, 6 or 7 industrial buildings. Like, he's just hustling, but he's a networker, and commercial is more of a networking game. And
is he looking for buyers? What is his goal with it?
He's holding them, buying and hold. That Spark company that I've worked with and still work with. That's who he's buying them with. He partners with them, but he's very good at that. And then, I think mobile home parks are great investments too.
Get the bigger cash flow.
Yeah. And I was telling Jensen, I think we need to do some deals this year together. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah. The single family is definitely a quicker route. We've noticed that. I mean, we can get a deal under contract and within 2 weeks sometimes get paid on a wholesale deal. So it's especially starting out, I think it's good to understand that process and then eventually, move on to the bigger deals.
Yeah. All you need is a phone, some ability to skip trace numbers, and then at least one buyer, and you're good.
Yeah. You don't even need the skip tracing if you took it like me and just went door knocking.
Yeah.
Just go to the county.
You learned that from solar, probably.
Yeah, I was knocking doors I've never had a real job. All I've done is knock doors.
Yeah,
just do it.
I said, which is surprising. I thought you would. I always thought you were like gonna go do like some type of engineering gig or something.
That's what I started with in school. Just like you're like, I want to be pre-dental. And then after a year, I'm like, I don't want to be an engineer. And then I realized, I found like real estate just reading or on social media, like literally just like you, I saw it on someone's social media. I was like, this can't be legit. And then I started reading some books. And I was like, oh my God, I think it is.
And like one thing that people need to realize though is I think too many people try and get into real estate because they don't want to work hard, or like they want an easier life. Like, something I've noticed is, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. every day, and I usually don't shut it down till 7 p.m., maybe even later some days. And it's more work. I mean, it's harder. And this has been a recent change for me. And if you guys knew me in college, it's probably a shock to you guys, but I've gone completely sober and like, it's changed my life. Like I have to wake up every day and I've got to be 120%. So if I'm involved in any type of substance and I wake up and I'm at 60%, I have to create my own work. I'm not going and sitting behind a desk where I get on a computer and my work's in front of me. So like I can't just show up and so that's a big change that I've made. And I'm happier, I'm healthier, like things. I enjoy work now. Like I wake up at 5 and I'm excited.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I definitely recommend that to people too.
Congrats on that, because that is cool. I think I wasn't in y'all's pledge class or anything in the fraternity, but definitely I heard some stories. So I can tell you it's pretty impressive what you've been able to do. But yeah, it's definitely not easier. I mean, we wake up at 5. Alex and I are usually in the gym at 5:30 and then trying to get everything done before 9 a.m. that we don't need to answer calls to, because once 9, 10 in the morning, I mean, we're fielding leads, doing phone calls, trying to lock up deals, however it is, right? It's like we could be going until 8 p.m. at night if we want, but we have to pretty much shut it down, so we don't drive ourselves crazy. It's definitely not easier.
No, but it's more fun.
Yeah. A lot more rewarding.
Yeah, it is.
Well, cool. I appreciate the time though. It's been fun. Hopefully we'll connect on a deal here soon. I know we're not really marketing in Oklahoma too much, but
no, but I'm putting the new Facebook stuff out in Tulsa, a bunch of regions out there. So we'll definitely get several this year or this next year.
Yeah, I need more houses. You guys find them, I'll flip them.
There you go. Let us know to find Jake. You just listed one property. You have an open house tomorrow or today, you said?
Today, yeah. It actually, I mean, I think we got 10 phone calls day one, so I think it'll move quick.
Yeah. And that one's in Tulsa? Obviously, all of them are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where can someone find you? Social media? I know you're getting a little more active on social media. I've seen you.
Jake Koenig 21. I think that's.
How do you spell Koenig?
Koenig.
Jake Koenig 21. That's Instagram. What, Facebook?
Yeah, I think Facebook's just Jake Koenig, and then I do a lot on Twitter too, which is the same thing. I think Jake Koenig 21, or maybe it's J_Koenig 21. I can't remember.
We'll find you. If it's someone that is flipping houses, they probably got the right one.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate it. Good luck with the new projects that are out there. Hopefully it gets sold quick.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Have a good day.